Traveled to surprise my boyfriend's family for Christmas, ended up feeling like an unwelcome outsider while his ex basked in acceptance. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and my boyfriend, 33 male, and I decided to travel to the USA on December 15th to celebrate Christmas with his family. We wanted to arrive 10 days early so I could explore the area, and to make the visit special by surprising them. I was excited, imagining that his family would be happy to see me, though it quickly became clear that all their excitement was for my boyfriend and his children, not for me. The real surprise for me happened the moment we got there. I hadn't been told that his children's mother, BM, would be at their family Christmas, but she suddenly appeared and both my boyfriend and the kids ran to hug her. I wasn't expecting a hug myself, but I tried to be friendly and say hello. That's when his mom looked at me, and said, "Oh, it's you," and then whispered to my boyfriend's dad, "She's the girl BM's name was telling us about." It caught me off guard, but I tried to brush it off, reasoning that this was their first time meeting me. I introduced myself, hoping to make a good impression, but my greeting was met with a dismissive hi as they ushered everyone inside, clearly more interested in BM and the kids. I tried not to show my disappointment. I complimented their house, got a quick, "Thank you," and tried to blend in. Later, I took my suitcase and went upstairs, under the impression we were all staying here. That's when BM confronted me, questioning what I was doing poking around their house. I was confused. Apparently, it had been decided that BM and the kids would stay here, while my boyfriend and I needed to find a hotel. This was news to both me and my boyfriend, Chase, not his real name, and, shocked as we were, we didn't want to start an argument. We hauled our bags back down and left after about half an hour, feeling more ignored than included. I tried not to take it personally, telling myself that I was just tired and that they didn't know me yet. Since it was BM's custody turn, Chase and I said a sad goodbye to the kids and wrangled with canceling the hostel we'd booked, which wasn't easy since neither of us had done it before. Eventually, we got it sorted and had to book 2 separate hotel rooms instead, painfully expensive, and not part of the plan. Chase bunked with his 2 daughters, 8F and 2F, and I took care of his other 2 kids, 5 meters and 1F. I held back tears, determined to make the best of Christmas. But Christmas ended up falling on BM's custody turn, and though we got a few hours together, it was clear we were outsiders in their celebration. Christmas at their house didn't start until 6 p.m. while Chase and I, along with Courtney, the 8-yo, BM, and other adults helped his mom make dinner. The mood was strange. We all sat down at 6:50, and by 7 o'clock we were done, having barely had time to inhale the food. I was looking forward to the usual holiday festivities, dancing, games, stockings, gifts, and carols. Instead, BM only allowed Chase to have the kids until 6:59, so we were hustled back to our hotels. No Christmas stockings were set out for me, and the gifts were only for Chase. For hours I'd been ignored, shot dirty looks by relatives, and made to feel wholly unwelcome, with no effort to include me at all. The grandparents went out of their way to lecture me, explaining how much they preferred BM. Chase tried to apologize and defended me, snapping at his family while BM shot me sly grins when no one was looking. Humiliated and seething, I grabbed my coat and stormed out. Chase followed me to the rental car. Back at the hotel, I gave in to the tears I'd held back all evening. The whole trip had been a waste, all that money, time, and energy spent to be told I wasn't wanted. We were supposed to stay for New Year's, but we were both so disappointed that we decided to cut our holiday short and leave the next day. BM was furious, claiming I'd ruined her holiday since the custody agreement stated that neither parent could stay abroad with the kids without the other being present. She had come just for that reason. She blamed me for not just sucking it up for one holiday, but I can't believe everything was soured simply because his family wanted BM there and couldn't hide their distaste for me. Now BM is going around blaming me for her ruined holiday, saying it was all my fault for not sucking up my feelings for one holiday. I just wanted to leave so that Chase, his kids, and their mum could enjoy, but he insisted on leaving too, which meant the kids and BM all had to leave because of their agreement. Now, I'm the scapegoat for everything that went wrong. To make matters worse, my boyfriend's daughter, 8F, decided to tell her school friends that I'm nothing more than her personal servant or unpaid nanny who just happens to live with her dad. I was livid. That kind of disrespect from a child, especially when I look after her and her siblings during custody time, is hard to swallow. Even personal servants and nannies get more respect than what I was being shown. Normally, I don't pick her up from school, but this time no one else was able. Chase was ill and his kid's mom's car had broken down. Her maternal grandparents couldn't help because their mom went no contact with them, and there's a nasty virus making the rounds where we live, leaving many people too sick to lend a hand. His parents, of course, are still in the US. Chase does address her behavior, reprimanding her, and she's even been switched to a new therapist, but I'm still shocked at her attitude. Apparently, she got the idea from social media. A cousin showed her a viral post where a girl referred to her step-parent as her personal servant, and she thought it would be funny to copy that. After everything, I found myself asking, why do I put up with her disrespect? I'm seriously thinking of refusing to pick her up anymore if she can't even treat me with basic civility. I feel guilty about leaving a sick child at school, or putting extra pressure on her grandparents or my boyfriend, especially since I'm on the emergency contact list. But I feel like it's too much to ask to keep subjecting myself to this disrespect. For anyone wondering about Chase's illness, the UK weather plummeted to freezing, and he caught a terrible cold, completely wiped out, coughing, headaches, stomach cramps, barely able to move, so he couldn't drive or do school pickups even if he wanted to. All I ever wanted was to be part of this family, or at least treated with an ounce of respect. Instead, I feel like the outsider who spoiled everything, and I don't know how much longer I'm willing to keep trying. Update 1. After some reflection, I've come to realize that maybe I am TBF, and honestly, I don't intend to stop picking Courtney up or get overly offended over a single comment. The perspective I've gained from this has been invaluable. After my boyfriend picked up his kids, we sat down together to address what happened, her attitude towards me, and my admittedly strong reaction to her comment. I decided then and there to apologize to her for overreacting and made a conscious choice to not let similar comments get under my skin in the future. I even decided to laugh along with it, to turn the personal servant remark into an ongoing inside joke. The next time my boyfriend and I went to pick up the children, I rolled down my window with a grin and announced, "Your personal servant's here to pick you up." The kids burst out laughing as they hopped into the car. Once we got home, we had our family meeting to talk openly about Courtney calling me her personal maid and my reaction. I offered my apology for overreacting, and she said it was okay. She didn't say much to me after that, but honestly, as long as she's safe and happy, that's what I care about most. I can put my feelings aside for the children's sake. I wanted to bring everyone together, so I spent the afternoon baking chocolate cupcakes in anticipation of a family gathering. My sister, brother-in-law, niece, and my parents were all coming over. The kids adored the cupcakes, especially my boyfriend's son, who tried sneaking another one when he thought I wouldn't notice. I let it slide since everyone was in high spirits. The next day, we all went out to watch football. The mood was light, and the personal servant joke kept everyone laughing as I announced, "The personal servant is here to serve her master's chocolate cupcakes." Turning the situation into humor really set the tone for a joyful weekend. These little moments remind me how much I love learning from my mistakes and making the best of whatever comes my way. I feel blessed to have spent such a good weekend with my boyfriend and his children. Soon after, I started thinking about my boyfriend's son's upcoming birthday. I was assigned the task of making his birthday cake, and I found this amazing chocolate cake idea online. When I shared the picture, everyone was on board, except his mom, who immediately began to complain that the cake had too much chocolate and was too unhealthy. Now I was stuck wondering, should I remove some of the chocolates and just keep the big bars on top, or strip all the chocolates off and only leave the footballs? His son desperately wanted this cake, but I didn't want to ignore his mom's valid health concerns. I felt torn between wanting him to enjoy his special day and not overstepping boundaries. As Easter approached, I realized I'd never hosted an Easter party before and was a little lost on traditions. I knew I wanted to make an Easter cake and organize an egg hunt for the children, but I worried that wouldn't be enough to keep everyone entertained. What else could I add? Food, decorations, games? I wanted it to be festive and memorable. I poured my heart into hosting the Easter gathering for my family. I set up an Easter egg trial where I had clues around the garden, each egg containing a riddle leading toward the grand prize, a huge, boxed chocolate Easter egg concealed in a little pirate chest which I decorated with stickers and paint, with plenty of help from my boyfriend's children, who absolutely loved getting involved. Afterward, we had a traditional egg hunt, with extra help from my older sister, my boyfriend, my grandparents, Courtney, and my 2 older nieces. While everyone else was inside eating, Courtney opted to skip the hunt, claiming instead to be supervising the kids, but she ended up revealing the locations of the eggs to her younger sister, Sophia. I tried to gently discourage her from giving away all the clues, but she insisted she was just supervising. I was disappointed and upset when she blurted out the answers. Chase was quick to reprimand her, attempting to take the half-eaten eggs away from Sophia. Of course, she burst into tears. It didn't feel right to punish her, so I told Chase we should just let her have them this once, and save the rest for later. The youngest was thrilled to think she'd found all the eggs, even if Courtney had helped, but then chaos broke out. Older kids rushed, argued over who'd found eggs first, and the younger children, left behind, started crying because they had none. As the conflicts escalated, I scrambled to calm everyone, giving away the eggs I'd meant for Sophia, promising to make it up to her. I slipped my sister some money to take Sophia to the local shop for another big egg and a toy, giving her the rest as pocket money. Inside, Courtney kept stirring things up. She told the younger kids, ages 2 to 6, where I'd hidden the Easter basket stuffed with chocolates and toys. They raided the kitchen, squabbling over treats. By the time I realized what was happening, the party's Easter cake was half eaten. It was meant for everyone. Overwhelmed, I retreated to my room, trying to keep my tears out of sight from the kids. I'd put so much effort into this day, only for it all to unravel. My boyfriend comforted me, and soon the adults rallied around too, offering me support. Courtney was sent to her room without her phone, with Chase making sure she knew her actions weren't okay. It felt a bit severe, but ultimately, I chose to quietly explain to her the importance of not spoiling the day for others. I didn't want to spend the rest of Easter nagging. My dad, seeing how hard I'd tried, offered to buy more chocolate eggs and host another egg hunt at his house the following week. He, my boyfriend, my siblings, and I would handle the games. Mom and my nieces would help with food, and I'd work on the cake and desserts. Dad made sure to include Courtney in the plans, even preparing a special basket just for her, on the condition she wouldn't sabotage things again. While some felt it would be better to leave Courtney at home, I agreed with my grandparents that even if she acted up, it wouldn't be fair to exclude her. She deserves the chance to join in the fun, provided she's supervised and understands her actions have consequences. Despite everything, I'm determined to keep learning and keep trying, for my family, for my boyfriend's kids, and for myself. Even on the most disastrous days, I look for the little moments of laughter and connection and try to turn setbacks into memories we'll all cherish one day. I always believed in maintaining a professional environment, and I didn't think I was asking for too much. My commitment to high standards at work sometimes put me at odds with others, but it felt necessary. My former coworker quit after I repeatedly reported their hygiene issues to HR. I'll admit, their body odor was hard to ignore, and I truly believed it affected the work atmosphere. When my manager called me in for a meeting, they told me I had a negative attitude in the workplace, which apparently wasn't the first time this concern had come up. But honestly, I felt like I was just trying to improve things. Whenever I worked with interns, I believed it was important to give them honest feedback. After each term, I was responsible for reviewing their performance. In one case, I explained to an intern that their clothing choices just weren't appropriate for the office. Their hair always looked unbrushed, their teeth were yellow, and they wore clothes with visible stains. On top of that, they would spend most of their time on their phones and used mental health and focus issues as an excuse not to work. I saw them staring out the window or playing games on the computer, sometimes even with the volume up. I lost patience one day and called them out directly in a review meeting. It was a firm critique, yes, it made them cry, but I was fed up with the constant excuses. I felt no need to sugarcoat things just because they were only college interns. The internship program confused me anyway, a confusing blend of student and employee, no clear boundaries. Despite my honesty, I ended up getting reprimanded for being too harsh, which I found deeply frustrating. Why schedule review meetings at all if you aren't allowed to be forthright? One of my managers gave me a long lecture about being more sensitive to students and interns, which I felt was pointless. I said as much. What was the benefit of reviews if honest feedback wasn't allowed? In fact, they said this wasn't even my first problematic interaction. I had previously made another coworker quit in tears after I commented on their odor. Again, it distracted me from my work, and switching desks wasn't allowed. There were further incidents. I openly policed what people heated up in the microwaves, once confronting a colleague about warming up fish curry and making the kitchen smell. I didn't believe I'd done anything wrong, I simply disliked coworkers stinking up common areas with pungent food. The final straw, apparently, was when I snapped at another student intern for leaving dirty mugs on our desks over the weekend, which I ended up having to clean. That pushed me over the edge. Interns should learn responsibility if they are to survive in the real world, and I was only helping them as part of a promotion and pay rise deal. The management disagreed. I was told my behavior was unacceptable and dismissed. Before I left the office that day, I was explicitly instructed not to return to work until further notice. How am I supposed to do my job if even having an opinion or giving factual feedback is grounds for discipline? Now I'm trying to figure out how to file a complaint for unfair dismissal and reprimands, simply for doing what I believed was right. Update 2. Things have taken a dramatic turn, and I honestly don't know where to begin. After the Easter disaster, I thought we were making progress. Courtney seemed to be warming up to me, and even Chase's family back in the US had started sending me occasional texts asking how I was doing. I was cautiously optimistic that maybe, just maybe, things were finally settling into a normal rhythm. That illusion shattered 3 weeks ago when I discovered something that's left me questioning everything I thought I knew about my relationship. I was doing laundry. Chase had been working late shifts at his new job and was exhausted, so I'd taken over most of the household duties without complaint. While emptying his jacket pockets, I found a receipt from a restaurant I'd never heard of, dated from 2 weeks prior. The weird part? It was for 2 meals, and Chase had told me he was working through lunch that day because of a big project deadline. Initially, I brushed it off. Maybe he'd grabbed lunch for a colleague or eaten twice because he'd missed breakfast. But something nagged at me, especially since the restaurant was nearly an hour away from his office, and in the same area where BM works. I tried to push the suspicion away, but then more little things started adding up. Chase's phone, which used to sit openly on counters, was suddenly always face down or in his pocket. He'd step outside to take calls, claiming they were work-related. Most telling of all, he'd started showering immediately when he came home from these late nights, something he'd never done before. The breaking point came last Tuesday. Courtney had forgotten her homework folder at our place, and BM texted asking if someone could drop it off at her house since she was sick and couldn't pick it up. Chase was supposedly in back-to-back meetings, so I volunteered to go. I figured it might even be a chance to finally have a civil conversation with BM and maybe start fresh. When I arrived at her house, I could see Chase's car parked around the corner, a spot where it wouldn't be visible from the main road. My stomach dropped. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe his car had broken down nearby? Maybe he was helping with something child-related? But when Chase emerged from BM's house, straightening his shirt and checking his phone, all my rationalizations crumbled. He looked around carefully before getting in his car, completely unaware that I was watching from down the street. I drove home in a daze and waited. Chase arrived 2 hours later, kissing my cheek and complaining about how exhausting his meetings had been. When I asked about his day, he launched into detailed stories about client presentations and deadlines, all lies, delivered with the same caring tone he'd always used with me. I haven't confronted him yet. Part of me is terrified of what I'll learn, and another part wonders if I'm jumping to conclusions. But the evidence keeps mounting. Yesterday, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a text from BM. "Thanks for earlier. Same time Thursday?" Followed by a winking emoji. The worst part isn't even the potential affair, it's how this recontextualizes everything. Was BM's hostility during the Christmas trip all an act? Were those sly grins she gave me actually smug satisfaction that she was playing me for a fool? Is that why Chase's family was so cold to me, because they knew something was going on? And Courtney? God, I can't stop thinking about her calling me a personal servant. At the time, I thought it was just a kid parroting something she'd seen online, but now I wonder if she picked up on something between her parents and was acting out because of it. Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for. I'm torn between wanting to pack my bags immediately and feeling like I owe it to myself to get the full truth first. We've been together for 2 years. I've helped raise his children, rearranged my entire life around his custody schedule, and defended him to my own family when they questioned whether he was truly over his ex. The job situation has made everything more complicated too. Since being dismissed, I've been financially dependent on Chase, which makes the idea of leaving feel even more daunting. I have some savings, but not enough to start over completely, especially not with the current job market. I've been going through the motions, picking up the kids, making dinners, helping with homework, while feeling like I'm living in some bizarre alternate reality. Sophia hugged my legs yesterday and said, "I love you, miss," and I nearly broke down right there. These kids have become such a huge part of my life, and the thought of losing them if Chase and I end things is almost as painful as the betrayal itself. I think I'm going to have to confront him soon. I can't keep pretending everything is normal when I feel like I'm slowly going insane. But I'm scared of the answers I might get, and I'm scared of what comes next. Has anyone else been in a similar situation with stepchildren involved? How do you even begin to untangle a life you've built together when there are kids who didn't choose any of this? Update 3. I confronted Chase last night, and nothing could have prepared me for what followed. I'd planned to approach it calmly, maybe start with questions about the restaurant receipt or ask why his car was at BM's house. But when he walked through the door at 9:30 p.m., 3 hours later than he'd said he'd be home, something in me just snapped. "How was your meeting with BM today?" I asked before he'd even taken off his shoes. The color drained from his face instantly. For a split second, I saw pure panic, then he quickly tried to recover. "What are you talking about?" "I was at work all day." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I'd taken of his car parked around the corner from her house. "This was at 2 p.m. Same time you told me you were in client presentations." What happened next wasn't denial or anger like I'd expected. Chase just crumbled. He sat down heavily on the couch and put his head in his hands. For nearly 10 minutes, he said nothing while I stood there waiting, my heart hammering against my ribs. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." That's when he told me something that turned everything upside down again. BM hadn't been having an affair with him, she'd been blackmailing him. Apparently, during their marriage, Chase had been involved in some financial irregularities at his previous job. Nothing criminal, but definitely grounds for termination and potentially damaging to his career prospects. BM had kept documentation of everything, and when Chase started dating me seriously about 6 months ago, she threatened to expose him unless he started paying her additional money on top of child support. She said if I wanted to play happy families with you, I'd have to make sure she and the kids were taken care of first, he explained, still not looking at me. The payments started small, but they kept getting bigger. The restaurant receipts, the secret meetings, they were him delivering cash payments and BM outlining her next demands. The reason he'd been showering immediately after coming home wasn't to wash off evidence of an affair, but because these encounters left him feeling so disgusted with himself that he couldn't stand being in his own skin. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. "Because I was ashamed. And because I was terrified you'd leave if you knew what kind of mess you were getting involved with." I wanted to feel relief that he hadn't been cheating, but instead I felt something worse, the realization that our entire relationship had been built on lies. Every time I'd tried to understand BM's hostility, every moment I'd blamed myself for not being good enough to earn her basic respect, she'd been actively sabotaging us from behind the scenes. "The Christmas trip," I said, pieces clicking into place. "She orchestrated all of that, didn't she?" Chase nodded miserably. "She told my family that you were trying to replace her, that you were pushing the kids to call you mom, that you'd said horrible things about her. None of it was true, but they believed her because they wanted to." That explained his family's coldness, the whispered comments, the way they treated BM like the wrong party while making me feel like an intruder. "And Courtney? BM's been filling her head with stories about you for months." The personal servant thing wasn't from social media, it came directly from her mother. I felt sick. An 8-year-old child had been weaponized against me by her own mother, turned into a tiny soldier in a war I didn't even know was being fought. But then Chase told me something that made my blood run cold. The blackmail wasn't just about money anymore. BM's latest demand was that Chase break up with me entirely, and if he didn't comply by the end of this month, she'd not only expose his past but also file false allegations of inappropriate behavior around the children. She showed me exactly how she'd word the complaint, he said, his voice shaking. Even if the allegations were eventually proven false, my career would be over. I'd lose custody of my kids. Everything. I stared at him, trying to process the magnitude of what he was telling me. So what are you saying? That you're going to break up with me to protect yourself? I don't know, he whispered. I've been trying to figure out another way, but she's covered every angle. She's got me completely trapped. We talked until nearly 3 a.m., going in circles about possible solutions. Reporting the blackmail would require admitting to the original financial issues. Recording her making threats might be illegal depending on consent laws. Calling her bluff could destroy not just Chase but potentially affect the children if custody arrangements were disrupted. By morning, we were both emotionally exhausted and no closer to a solution. Chase left early to drop the kids at school, and I've been sitting here alone, trying to figure out what to do. The worst part is that I finally understand Courtney's behavior wasn't just typical kid adjustment issues. She's been systematically turned against me by someone she trusts completely. How do you even begin to undo that kind of manipulation? I keep thinking about that text message. Thanks for earlier, same time Thursday? Now I realize it probably wasn't flirtatious, it was transactional. Cold. Businesslike. Somehow that feels even more disturbing. Chase called me an hour ago, crying. Apparently, BM had texted him this morning saying she knew he'd told me everything, and now she's moving up her deadline. We have until this weekend to decide. I never imagined I'd be in a position where loving someone might mean walking away to save them, but I also can't shake the feeling that giving in to her demands will only make things worse in the long run. Has anyone dealt with anything like this before? I feel completely out of my depth.